Today we're going to be looking at the most polarizing 2019 NFL rookie, DK Metcalf. Will he be a bust? Will he be a stud? We're going to dive deep into the lore of DK Metcalf, why people are so obsessed with him, why people are so obsessed with calling him a bust, why they are enamored with him, and what my predictions are for this upcoming season and for Metcalf's NFL career. What's going on, NFL fans? I'm your host, Hussein the Brain, and you're watching The Couch. If you're a fan of American football, especially NFL fantasy football, I highly recommend you hit that subscribe button. Also hit that bell icon so you won't miss any future videos. DeKalin Zacharias Metcalf was drafted in the last pick of the second round by the Seattle Seahawks. That's 64th overall. He has two cousins that played in the NFL. Also, his father, Terrence Metcalf, was the offensive guard for the Chicago Bears, and he played in the NFL as well. The hype with Metcalf really started because of a number of reasons. First of all, he blew away the combine. His numbers and measurables were unreal, and then a picture of him he took with his shirt off started circulating. The man is 6'3", 228 pounds, ran a 4.33 40 time, 27 reps on the bench press, pretty impressive for a wide receiver, and a 40.5 vertical. Also, the machine clocked him at 1.6% body fat, which I had to dive further and really investigate if that was even possible. So I'm just gonna sum it up for you after watching a ton of videos and talking to some actual doctors and trainers. Pretty much, no, it's not really possible. The short version is DK Metcalf is probably around 5% body weight, maybe closer to 7% even, but let's just say 5%. There's no way he's under 3% body fat. It just doesn't look that way. And if you look at pictures of people who are 1% body fat, 2% body fat, it just doesn't match up. So it's pretty much impossible. And these body fat measurements, they are not 100% accurate. They could be off by 3% or maybe even a little bit more. For instance, bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman on late night TV once said that his body fat percentage measured at a negative something. It was negative 0.2% or something like that. Regardless, this just caused more buzz for DK Metcalf. But what really blew it out the water, why he was super trending and super popular, was his negatives. He was so extreme. He was the fastest, the biggest, the strongest. Like, we've never seen anything quite like that. Julio Jones and Calvin Johnson compared as far as their workouts and combine results, and that was really it. Then there was the negatives. The 3-cone drill, 7.38 seconds, slower than Tom Brady, and the 20-yard shuttle, 4.5 seconds. So let's dive into the negatives, why people don't like Metcalf as a pro wide receiver. It's his agility score. Agility is very important for wide receivers to make cuts. One of the things I talk to when I talk to defensive players in the league and in college football is it's so hard to defend a wide receiver that can just change directions so fast. So no doubt it is important. These are legitimate concerns for sure, but let me tell you why I'm not as concerned about this as other people. Is people are calling him a bust. Like they're going on a limb and just making sure everyone in the world knows that DK Metcalf is going to be a bust. And I don't quite get why people are going out their way to do that. Some comparisons you can make to Metcalf is Martavis Bryant. Martavis Bryant was fast, he was tall, but he's much more wiry frame, not quite as strong, not quite as bulky. Demaryius Thomas comes to mind. That's a pretty good one. Demaryius Thomas was very fast, but pretty raw. His first 2 years, Demaryius didn't even perform that well, but I think the best comparison is Calvin Johnson. Megatron's combine was off the charts, and this is really the only time I've seen a guy this big, this strong, and this fast. Also, Calvin Johnson did have a limited route tree as well, just like Metcalf. These guys only ran about 5 routes, and it didn't matter. It was still tough to stop them. Now, you definitely downgrade DK for his agility, for his 3-cone drill, for his shuttle, but there are other wide receivers that didn't do so good and people aren't really bringing up. Like, do you know Randy Moss's agility score? How did Adam Thielen do? DeAndre Hopkins, what was his shuttle time? Is anyone talking about that? You can't just box every single player just because they're a wide receiver into this mold that you have in your head. Okay, he's wide receiver, he's going to be a bust because of this drill. How about if he didn't run that drill? Like, would you think he'd be great then? Because a lot of receivers didn't even participate in the 3-cone drill. Another reason I'm docking DK Metcalf because of agility, but not as much as most people are, is because he did improve his numbers on Pro Day. Still not amazing, but both times he shedded by 0.2 seconds. Two things that are more concerning is his injury history in college. This is significant. I just don't want to call somebody injury prone if it's not something that I think is lingering. Let's say he had a knee issue, just a random player, okay? A player had a knee issue in high school, reoccurred in college, and then his other knee got hurt in college as well. Now we could just say like, okay, there is some significant knee issues with this player. Even if he is healthy, he may not last 10 years like we want him to be. Maybe not a good long-term investment. Let's downgrade that player. With Metcalf and many other players such as Nick Bosa, I'm not going to label this guy injury prone. The most concerning thing with Metcalf is his stats. So like Calvin Johnson completely dominated college football. DK Metcalf did not. Some of this was because of injury. What else excuses can I have for this guy? His quarterback play wasn't that good. The offense wasn't that great. There were a lot of other options to throw to on that offense. So that is definitely a concern. And that's why I wouldn't draft him top 10 maybe. And I understand why a lot of teams pass up on him in the first round, because I don't really see him as a true wide receiver one. If you're drafting him knowing what you're getting, I don't think it's that bad. If you're drafting him like, okay, I'm going to use this guy like a Martavius Bryant. Like Martavius Bryant, teams probably wouldn't have drafted him, you know, just going back in time when Martavius was coming out of college. You're probably not drafting him to be a true number one, a stud wide receiver, but could be a great wide receiver to a great complement. And that's what I see DK being in the NFL. It's a lot easier to assess and scout talent when it comes to other positions. And it's not just by position, it's case by case. It's by the player. Some players just pop out, or some players have traits that you just know, okay, I want this on my NFL roster. But other positions are easier, and some players are easier than others. Like for instance, O-linemen are much easier to evaluate in my opinion than wide receivers. Running backs, much more easier to evaluate than wide receivers. Any defensive player, much easier. Like Quinnen Williams, I really liked him this draft. Defensive tackle. I feel like he's a can't miss player, as close as you can get. Like, we know he's a good player. We know he's going to be good in the NFL. I mean, you never truly know, but I'm much more confident in a player like him than any said wide receiver.
Listen, thank you.
Like, they have some legitimate concern, and also wide receivers take longer to develop. We've seen rookie running backs, boom, first year, just become a star, become Pro Bowlers with a good coach, and he has one in Pete Carroll. That's why I want to do this video after he got drafted. With a good quarterback, Russell Wilson, he has that. He has a guy who can throw the deep ball, scramble, buy some time, throw the ball 40 plus yards with ease on the run. That's definitely Russell Wilson. And on top of that, we just got news that Doug Baldwin might retire. He seems like he really wants to play, but because of all these injuries, he may be forced to retire, which would raise Metcalf's stock, and also David Moore's stock, a young wide receiver on that team. Of course, Tyler Lockett, but that's a pretty obvious one, and we kind of saw Tyler Lockett. I think he's going to have the same role as we saw him in 2018. Not a ton of targets, not a ton of receptions, but very efficient and a deep ball catcher. Like, he's going to have a lot of deep plays. Good chemistry with Russell Wilson. I've legitimately had 49ers fans coming up to me saying, oh, are we going to draft DK Metcalf number 2 overall? I was like, look, as much as I love Metcalf, like, he's not worth a number 2 overall pick, and realistically, like, it's not going to happen. And I've also heard a lot of people say he shouldn't be drafted in the 3rd round, which is crazy. Like, they've given him a 4th round grade. Like, this is the most polarizing rookie I've seen that I can remember, and one where people's opinions are so like, should we draft him early or don't draft him at all? He's gonna be a complete bust. Like, I know he's gonna be a bust. And looking at some of the footage from his Ole Miss Pro Day, which are mostly taken by cell phones, I really liked it. Look, his route running is not Antonio Brown. You're not drafting that guy. It's not as sharp, but just thinking of opposing defenses going against them, you need a smart, experienced corner who's also very fast. You can stop DK Metcalf with that. I mean, the problem with that is usually most teams don't have more than one of those, so he might not be matched up against the best corner often. And if he is, that helps your offense. Someone's got to guard this guy. And okay, his cuts aren't as crisp, as sharp. He may be taking more steps than some of the elite wide receivers, but the speed he has, man, is just amazing. Like, I don't understand how people don't see these clips, aren't just like, wow, that's going to be tough to defend. It's almost like a tight end. You can also compare him to a guy like Evan Ingram, for instance, who's more of a receiving tight end. How do we know Metcalf is not going to be Corey Coleman, is not going to be Rashard Perryman, Darius Hayward-Bay, Dorial Green-Beckham, someone mentioned that one, or Kevin White, who I'm actually a fan of and want to see how he pans out on the Cardinals. Good chance he won't pan out because they drafted a ton of wide receivers, but nonetheless, I think we give Kevin White one more year. I'm just optimistic, more optimistic about him than most. The answer is we don't. We're just speculating. We don't know how these wide receivers are going to pan out. There's also a ton of examples where people thought wide receivers would be okay or good, and they ended up being the best wide receivers in the league, such as Antonio Brown. It happens all the time. Will DK Metcalf be Megatron? Will he be T.O., Julio Jones, Randy Moss? No, I don't think so, but I do believe he will be a starter in the league for 10 plus years. He will be productive. He will put a lot of pressure on opposing defenses. In the right system with the right coach who's smart, he can make the offense better. And another thing I really like about him is he's a very respectful young man. I just like his demeanor. I feel like he's not going to have the same issues or any type of attitude issues or any type of problems like we saw with Martavius Bryant or Justin Blackmon. Of course, these things are impossible to predict, but I'm just saying as of right now, there are no red flags that he's going to have an attitude problem or any type of issue off the field. And quite the opposite, matter of fact. As far as fantasy football goes, I'm very unlikely to draft DK Metcalf in my 2019 PPR redraft leagues. If Baldwin does retire, then I might consider it. But right now, I'm planning on avoiding him. Still early. I'm making this video still a bit early. Now in Dynasty, this is kind of crazy. This is very intriguing, especially if you're playing in a standard league or a half PPR, because I don't see him as getting a ton of receptions. I don't see him as that type of guy. Man, in Dynasty, I think he'll be just like he is right now, just like why I'm making this video, because he's so polarizing. He's way over here, way over there. I think a lot of your league mates in Dynasty are going to be drafting him all over the place. You're going to be seeing him getting drafted early round 1, and you're gonna be seeing him getting drafted maybe like early round 3 in rookie drafts. Like, that's how crazy it's gonna be. All depends on who's in your league. If you're in a league, let's say like in Wisconsin, I bet people draft Aaron Rodgers in the first round all the time, and I'm over here in Northern California drafting, and I see Raiders players go so early, and same thing with Niners players. Like, I just some drafts, my strategy is to completely avoid Niners players because there's some just Niner homers, and everywhere you're drafting there's always going to be Cowboy homers, so watch out for those Cowboy players. Let's look at the difference a good quarterback can make as far as a wide receiver's production goes. Demaryius Thomas hardly did anything his first 2 years, then boom, Peyton Manning comes, and here's the difference. 1,000 receiving plus yards every single year. I think he had 1,000 yard receiving when Peyton left. When it comes to projecting how this 21-year-old Ole Miss wide receiver is going to perform, I really want to draw comparisons to Martavis Bryant's stats. So not only is he a good deep ball receiver and fast, similar to Martavis in a lot of ways, except, Martavis is skinny. But this is where I'm going to also draw my baseline stats. So if Martavis wasn't constantly getting suspended, if he wasn't away from the training facilities because he was suspended, if he didn't have the off the field issues and the attitude that Martavis brought, which also hindered his stats, I believe, even from a per game basis. This is kind of the floor for DK. The upside is definitely there. Double digit touchdowns is definitely there. But we see Martavis Bryant's stats and not a whole lot of hate coming for Martavis Bryant from people on the internet, but a lot of hate going for DK Metcalf. And if you really think DK can't be as good as Martavis, I just don't get it. I feel like you're going out of your way just to hate on the man. Comment below and let me know what your predictions are for DK Metcalf's NFL career and this season. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit it up with a thumbs up. If you're a DK Metcalf hater, feel free to give it a thumbs down. It's all good. I appreciate all the feedback. Make sure you guys subscribe to both our YouTube channels. We actually have two, this one and the podcast channel. And I'll see you guys on the next video.